Yep. So hello everyone. I would like to thank all of you for attending this session or this public lecture. And I would like to welcome you to our series of session of the Inspiring the Mind project after the long summer. Today, actually, we have very interesting talk or discussion, if we can make like a discussion about the twinning transition between green and digital transformation for economic challenge and labor conflict. So today we have Professor Davide with us. I will leave the floor for him because I am aware that the lecture today will be very interesting and maybe we need more time for discussion and interact. And I discussed with him before we start the lecture, actually he would like to have your question in. So if you have any question during the lecture, just interrupt and ask the question. So I would like to leave the floor for you. Maybe you can just introduce yourself a bit and then we can just jump to the lecture.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here. And first, I want to thank you, the organizers, for inviting me and all the presents this afternoon to participate and join us for these lectures and seminars. As Tamer said, I prefer a more interactive seminar. So please, in any moment you want to intervene or asking for something, clarification, or make some comments, please open up your microphone and just jump into the discussion, because when I will share my screen, I can't have a complete overview to all the present. So I can see if someone raises hands or stuff like that. So please open up your microphone, feel free to do it and comment or ask something. Okay. My name is Davide Arcidiacono from the University of Catania and the Department of Political and Social Science of my university. I'm an economic sociologist and especially involved in the topic of digital transformation and its implication on society and labor. Only recently, I start to connect my interest of research with the topic of sustainability, and I'm part of two important research teams in a project called ReCity, that is a project about urban resilience and smartness, and another project is the Biotraces, an Horizon project that involves different partners and is about transformative change and innovation for biodiversity. They are at a very early stage of development, this project, but if you are interested, we can discuss also some of the approach and analysis we are conducting about. Okay. I'll share my screen and we'll start with the seminars of today. Okay, I think everybody can see it. Okay,
yep,
while
sure.
we talk about transition and twin transition, what does it mean? When we talk about twin transition, of course, we are talking about the interplay, the intertwine between the two transitions, the green and the digital, that become at the central of the debate in the public and political arena in recent years. This type of interplay remains somehow implicit in when the issue of sustainable development and digital transformation arise between the 70s and the 90s and become more explicit only with the pandemic. The pandemic, in a certain sense, represents an important historical turning point that generate the necessity of underlining the importance of looking at the interplay between the two transitions, that in a different perspective and before the pandemic were considered in a certain sense two separate process of transformation. Of course, with different elements in common, but separated also from the political point of view, in terms of policies and national action plans. In this sense, what is interesting when we talk about twin transition is also explaining what we are talking about when we use the word transition and why we don't use the word transformation. Because I think it's an important conceptual aspect that we have to take into consideration. When we talk about transformation, generally, we talk about a process that is more bottom-up, is more based on that start from the interaction between values and social practice with the economic and social context people they live in. While when we talk about transition, we are talking about of a more top-down process of transformation, more policy-oriented, more gradual, more driven by specific actors. For this reason, explain some criticism about the word transition, especially from eco-socialists that consider transition a naive and simplistic perspective. Why simplistic? Why naive? Because in a certain sense, the word transition and the idea of transitional process hide the contradictory and the potential frictionality at the social level of transition. In a certain sense, the idea of transition relies in a complete, more technocratic trust about the growth paradigm and the capitalist development. And in a certain sense, the debate about transition is somehow completed by the emergence of a new specificity about transition, that is the term just transition, that emerged in the 90s in the United States, thanks to unions and social activists that claim the importance of linking the transition to his social impact, especially because they were particularly concerns about job losses. Do you know that the concerns about job losses is something that is very common in the two transition? And when we talk about digital, do you know, the majority of concerning at the social level is the fact that the digital will destroy some jobs, for example. For sure you will know the work of Frey and Osborne in United States that become quite paradigmatic when we talk about that established that the 50% of people will lose their job, the 50% of job places will disappear with the digital transformation. Same concerns could be applied also to the green transition, because many people could fear that policy oriented towards sustainability could oblige, for example, country to adopt solution that will generate job losses. Think about what happened in the automotive industry in Europe, and the debate about the mandatory introduction of electric cars, and all the debate in the automotive industry about that, and the worries about possible job losses linked to that. Or think about always, if you want to make an example in Italy, the facts of the Ilva di Taranto that explain these worries between the need for an ecological transition and the fear of job losses in that local area. So the concept of just transition become a policy tool that start from activism, start from unionism, and become a policy tool. A policy tool that we can find, of course, in for example, in the COP meeting. We find also in the International Labour Organization guidelines of 2015, and this idea of just transition, you know, is based on the idea of restoring the importance of social dialogue and cooperation in the transition, incorporating the main aim of promoting social justice within the transition. Including not only form of restorative or procedural justice, but also redistributive justice within the transition. Why twins? This is another issue that we take into consideration. Why we talk about twin transition? Why we talk about these two transitions as twins? Because, of course, there are elements of strong interconnection between the two transitions, and of course, there are elements of strong complementarity and synergetic aspects between the two transitions. And of course, there are also aspects that are more contentious, that are more conflicting each other between the two transitions. And especially this part are often underestimated by scholars and mainly by policymakers that tend to overestimate the complementarity part, but doesn't pay enough attention to the contentious part, the problematic part of the transitions, of the two transitions, of the relations between the two transitions. Of course, the complementarity between the two transitions is mainly based on the fact that technological innovation and, of course, ICT technological innovation interplay, of course, an essential role in any transition, and of course also in the green transition. Also because they have, in a certain sense, common goals, common principles. For example, reduction of information asymmetry, sharing of knowledge, disintermediation, dematerialization are common issues in the two transitions. Of course, these combinatorial natures of the two transitions shaped specific political tools and labels that we already know. For example, the construction of the so-called Green Digital Coalition, or for example, the reframe of the Industry 4.0 policies in Industry 4.0 to Industry 5.0, or Circular Industry 4.0, are the new labels that represent the attempt of express the necessity of a complementarity political approach to the two transitions. This means also adopting a new innovation ecosystem approach, different from the traditional Escovitz conceptualization of the triple helix, and systematize the idea of a challenge-oriented innovation ecosystem that could be defined as the five-fold or the quintuple helix. What is very interesting in this aspect is that for the first time, not only civil society, but the environment in itself and natural capital become an important dimension that is taken into consideration when we talk about eco-innovative system. All these, of course, these aspects of complementarity are shaped towards another important common goal, that is the idea that the two transitions has in common, and is the transition for a linear economy to a circular or closed loop economy. Of course, this is not an easy task because, as I told you, the majority of, despite some technocratic and solutionist approach, this idea of complementarity is not sufficient to overcome the potential frictionality between the two transitions. First of all, because not everything that is digital is always green. And of course, the use of digital technology could generate, empower, and boost forms of rebound effects on the use of resources and potential conflict related to the use of resources. On the other side, digitalization is an important driver in work polarization and social polarization. These create an increase of inequalities that could obstacle especially the social sustainability of the green transition. And so avoiding the possibility to reach towards a just transition. Also because the two transition in a certain sense impose so quickly that make different problems in terms of finding a balance in the capability of regulators and also different level of governance to cope with the challenge of the two transition together. Especially because these two transition generate an important push towards market concentration and a detriment to small and medium-sized enterprise. Generally, we imagine that the digital, for example, or the green transition are a great empower for small and medium enterprises. We are convinced that, of course, the digital give more visibility to micro entrepreneurs, give more visibility to proximity economy and other stuff like that. But in reality, we have to, the majority of the analysis available on this side show that despite this potentiality, they are the biggest player, the biggest company are the players that get the most, the possibility to get access to finance opportunity for the transition and have more resources and to invest, are more capable to attract human capital that is available to support them in the transition, respect to small medium enterprise that are more exposed to the risk of the transition. Because of course we work also in field where some industry and sectors affected by digitalization of greening that some in many cases are not mature markets and sometimes they are not still profitable for many companies. And so biggest company have the wider shoulder, the bigger shoulder to bear the cost and the cost of the transition, while small medium enterprises are not. And of course, also the problem of concentration is also related to the fact that the digital transition depends also on important infrastructure that are concentrated in the hands of few big players that generate an important pressure also in terms of political international relations, and of course generate also new forms of imbalances in the relationship between the global north and the global south, reproducing also forms of neocolonialism. This is, for example, an example of what happens with ChatGPT, for example, and what happens, for example, when was discovered that many micro workers that participate to the development of the AI beyond ChatGPT functioning works in Kenya for few monies, are micro jobbers, micro taskers in so-called click farms. So these are an example of the inequality, sometimes hidden beyond the transition. In fact, these workers, like in the case of the ChatGPT, they are recalled like ghost workers because they become invisible. They are not visible at all. But this happens also, for example, if you talk to the workers of the mines in Congo or in other parts of the world, in the mines, for example, of rare minerals that are crucial, for example, for the production of batteries or semiconductors and stuff like that. These are an example of what we already talked about, the creation of a digital green coalition at the European level that put together the most important technological provider and consultant on this field, and demonstrate the importance of strengthening the dialogue between economic players and at the institutional level, especially the European one, between the two transitions. And the case I already mentioned about the, I don't know if you see it clearly, this on this side you have the Industry 4.0 principle, and here you find on the right side the Industry 5.0 principle introduced by the European Union, the recent European Union documents. And what is different between the two models that shape the industrial policies of Europe in European countries? Of course, the attention to the complementarity between the digital and the green economy, and the impact in terms of sustainability, on the impact to radical sustainability. In fact, if in Industry 4.0, you can easily check on the left side, the last point, there where there is some quotes about the use of resources, try to avoiding and limiting the negative environmental impact of in the use of technology. This principle inserted in the Industry 4.0 frame is extended somehow, enlarged in the Industry 5.0 approach, because taking more into consideration the problem to intersect the two transition in terms of well-being, but also state the importance of corporation to take responsibility for realizing a more sustainable global value chains in the perspective of the twin transition. This is another example of the complementarity of the twin transition is the eco-innovation concept. The eco-innovation concept is a reframe of the innovation concept, the traditional innovation concept or economic innovation concept elaborated by the European Union. And this is not only a theoretical concept, it's really a policy tool, because it is a as you know, the concept of eco-innovation was translated in the possibility of in the capability of European Union to generate the so-called eco-innovation scoreboard. That is the new scoreboard that substitutes the traditional innovation scoreboard that we had in the past. This idea of monitoring how the states are capable to produce eco-innovation is, of course, an important policy tool in the European Union. And as you can see in the graph, states are classified with respect to their different capability of producing eco-innovations. So what we are measuring with this kind of metrics is a sort of ranking of the national innovation system to produce eco-innovation. And this ranking is grouped in three main clusters. The first cluster is the eco-innovation leaders group, where you can find the traditional eco-innovative leaders that belongs especially to the northern part of Europe or the central part of Europe, like, for example, Germany. Then we have the so-called eco-innovative performers, where you can find most of the Mediterranean or of the south part of Europe. And then we have the last group, that is the catching up group, that are more concentrated in the eastern part of Europe. Why it's important, this concept? Because this concept testifies the attention not only to the complementarity between the digital and the green transition, but also the importance of a different level of preparedness and readiness to the possibility of combining the two transitions. and the importance of shaping policies that taking into account the different capability of the different national eco-innovative system to cope with the challenge of eco-innovation. To better understand this concept of eco-innovation as a leading part also in European policies, I think that it's important to quote the work of Carrillo Hermosilla, that have created this important matrix that gives some insights about how the eco-innovation represents somehow an instrument of policies in the European Union. Carrillo Hermosilla distinguished two important dimensions that we have to take into consideration in framing eco-innovation. From one side, we have how much is radical what we are innovating. We are talking about simple incremental innovation respect to the existing system, or we are talking about something that is radical, change the rule of the games. So the line, the dimension are between these two poles. Or the other dimension is if eco-innovation is oriented only to the minimize the negative impact of economic activities, or instead this eco-innovation is oriented to generate a positive impact of economic activity, starting to redesign economic activity and economic productive system. Combining the two dimensions, we could have different grades of eco-innovation, simply component addition that are in the lower stage of eco-innovation, so the so-called end-of-pipe technology that are that try to minimize the negative impact of economic activity, to eco-efficiency strategy that are more concentrated to subsystem change in order to reduce, for example, to resolve the problem of efficiency in the use, for example, of resources, of efficiency in terms, for example, of producing waste linked to the economic activity. At the higher rank of this process, we have systemic change or eco-effective strategy that is more oriented to a complete redesign of products and services. Of course, in this gradual process of developing eco-innovation, three dimensions play an important role according to Carrillo Hermosilla. One, of course, is the dimension of users. Users are user legitimation, user cultural practice, and user participation to this systemic change are and acceptance of this systemic change is play an important part of this in the development of eco-innovative solution. The second aspect is related to the shift in the productive paradigm, a shift from a traditional product-based system to towards a model that is based on the product as a service paradigm. So where products are only means to develop services around products. So we don't take into account manufacturers are producers of goods, but producers of services around goods. This is also shaped in the idea of all manufacturing as a services is also named as a process. But the third element that is relevant in eco-innovation, according to Carrillo Hermosilla, is the institutional and regulators work, because it's important to cope with this challenge, provide techno-normative solutions in order to avoid conflicts around the resources, and also avoid conflicts in related to the social impact of these innovative solutions. So these are all the dimensions involved. Of course, in such schemes, it becomes quite evident that this type of process generates specific labor opportunity in each phase of this gradual process of eco-innovation. Because, for example, if we take into consideration the user acceptance, an important part of professional work emerge, for example, in the capability to increase legitimation about the greening transition, also through digital devices or digital platform or digital tools. In fact, these graphs show the interconnection between the different digital technology that compose the so-called fourth industrial revolution: Internet of Things, big data, AI, blockchain, cloud computing, platforms, and 3D printing, and how they intersect the transformation of circular economy. The product as a service, the life extension or recycling, or even the sharing practices as a way to combine sustainability and dematerialization. In fact, the digital solutions are seen as a way, especially to overcome barriers, lock-in mechanism, and market failures that could represent an obstacle to the development of a sustainable economy, and especially a transition towards a closed loop and circular economy. And of course, these market failures are somehow concentrated in four main areas: the problem of asymmetry of informations, the problem of transaction cost, and the problem of consumption and technological externalities. The major players you see in this graph represent different examples of companies that try to cope with these barriers through digital technology. For example, related to the topic of imperfect information and asymmetries, we have companies like General Electric or Maersk that work in the so-called digital passport for goods and services based on blockchain technology, in order to have clear information on origin, materials and composition of products that are important, for example, to reassembly or reuse or recycling stuff. In terms, for example, of transaction cost, some attempts are, for example, related to the emergence, for example, of sharing platforms, or a crowd pooling platform that, in a certain sense, represent the way to shift from a paradigm based on proprietary aspect to a cultural paradigm based on sharing asset and based on service and not directly in possessing products. Airbnb, Netflix participate, for example, to reducing also effects, for example, related to the use, for example, of resources. And so they participate to the dematerialization aims of the transition. But we said technological also externality are an important field for the development of digital technology oriented to that. For example, 3D printing play an important role in prototyping, in reducing, for example, the cost of prototyping for circular economy. At the same time, platforms play an important role for change the perspective of consumers about refurbished, reused, or recycled materials or products. changing the paradigm of the fact, change also their perspective and perception about the quality and the performativity of such kind of products and services. Of course, this paradigm shift from linear to circular economy is considered a sort of taken for granted perspective. But according to a scholar named Kirchner, there are no common definition about what circular economy is. In an interesting paper of Kirchner, there are more than 114 definitions of what circular economy could be, demonstrated that there is a common understanding of what we intend about circular economy, despite becoming an important reference point when we talk about the combination of digital and green transition. And this what we are talking about the quintuple helix of Carrai, Annis, and Campbell, and how it is important the inclusion of natural environment in within the eco-innovative national system. The importance to introduce this dimension together with civil society, media, and culture that represent an important aspect of the combinatoriety of this institutional dimension for eco-innovative process. And of course, when we talk about this complementarity, the best example in terms of companies is, of course, Tesla. Tesla is represent mainly an example of a green product that strongly based interconnection between green and digital. In fact, for many scholars considered Tesla a sort of smartphone car, because since the beginning, Elon Musk conceptualization of Tesla's product is not based only on the battery technology, but is more based on the idea of introducing an integration between the paradigm of a product as a service and datification and data sharing and data warehousing as a tool to improve and implement the technology of Tesla, including also the capability of consumer to participate to the ecosystem of Tesla through, for example, the Powerwall technology, using Powerwall technology in order to adopt smart grid system in order to share the energy they collect to the Tesla system of recharging. This is an intuition of Elon Musk that show clearly the combinatorial nature between the digital and the green. In a certain sense, Tesla is a sort of benchmark on doing that. But of course, there are also, as I told you before, different frictionalities, different tension in this double transition. Also because, as I told you before, not everything that is digital is green. And of course, data centers and, for example, data warehousing are an important source of energy and material demands. So, for example, data warehousing increase the demand of water resources, or increase the demand also for energy production. For example, data warehousing also produce forms of pollution that are similar or even more higher than air traffic, for example. The increased use also of technological device have increased also of the 21% in the last 5 years electronic waste all around the world. And also in terms of eco-efficiency or the use, for example, of sharing or reuse solution, not always could be considered a good for thing for sustainability, because it can generate rebound effect. This rebound effect would be direct or indirect. For example, could reduce the unitary cost of the final product, generate what we call the income effect, and so what the people save through more efficient technology is spent on overconsumption. Or in other case are spent in unsustainable practices, consumption practices. So these are some examples of tensions between the two transitions. An example of that is what we call the Arification of the city. In an important study made by the University of Padova about the social impact of Airbnb in three main touristic cities in Italy, is point out that Airbnb system that when arise was seen as a way to promote a sustainable city and a sustainable tourism system, because of course optimizing the real estate system, optimizing the availability of houses instead of creating new hotels, for example, it could be considered as sustainable practices. But at the same time, this generates undesired, unintended effects in terms of sustainability, especially at the social level. Because in this study, this effect of arification of the city is point out that, of course, the great success of Airbnb decrease the availability of home for long renting and increase the cost of long renting houses. And this create problem of affordability of housing for people that work in that cities, obliging them to live outside the city, to live in peripheral neighborhood, and so increasing the so-called sprawl effect, the distance they have to take to go from home to work and return. So this increased pollution, this increased congestions instead of solving the problem. Also, Airbnb system increase also over tourism in these cities, creating a strong conflict between citizens and tourism in these cities. A conflict that obliged, for example, some municipality, think the case of Barcelona and the mayor of Barcelona, Adriana Colau, that start a war against Airbnb for this gentrification effect generated, and also the problem, the housing problem in Barcelona. And an interesting insight come also from the American experience, where recently was pointed out how the increase of offer in the great success of Airbnb generate an increase of offer of houses for short renting respect to selling or long renting houses, and this increase of offer decrease the profitability of Airbnb for the owner of these houses that sometimes have use Airbnb to repay their mortgages. And according to some scholars, they will generate a new bubble, speculative bubble in the real estate market in United States. For example, in cities like Phoenix or Denver and other cities like that. Another interesting case of unsustainability of digital sharing platforms is the case of Innisfil, a small town in Ontario, where municipality decide to substitute public transit with Uber. In this case, what is interesting in this case, that in the idea of the municipality making an agreement with Uber was considered the solution to reducing cost for municipality, empowering sustainability, reducing traffic, optimizing car traffic in the town, and increasing also the quality of the service for people. At the end of this experimentation, the municipality obtained totally the reverse, because people, from one side, people like so much these services, but the increased use of these services generate an increased number of people that propose as drivers towards Uber, increasing not carpooling system, but more congestions in the town area, the main town area. And at the same time, the great success of the services increased cost for the Innisfield municipality. And the Innisfield municipality was obliged to rethink to this policy approach, deciding of limiting to citizens the possibility to use Uber not more than 30 times each month. Also, in this case, also Tesla could be an example of the frictionality about the digital and the green. It's not only a positive example of combinatoriety, but also could be an example of the frictionality between the two transitions. First of all, for example, in the use of data, according to the Mozilla Foundation, that recently elaborated a report about the use of data about managed by the car producers. It point out how digital producer doesn't take care problem of privacy or problem of informed consent for consumers in order to avoid to sell their data to other players. 90% of car producers sell their data to other economic players without the consent of their users, or doesn't giving the possibility, without giving the possibility to user to refuse of sharing and selling this data. Another aspect is for the a recent case of in front of the UK court about the exploitation of children and minor works in the mines of rare minerals in Congo. Is a common case that involved not only Tesla, but also the main players of digital tech like Microsoft, Google, and Apple, and demonstrates the imbalances in the sustainability, in the combinatorial nature of digital and green economy, that it make at the expenses of an important part of the world population that belongs to the global south. And these are something that we have to take into account, and sometimes is underestimated in our debate about transition, and to looking at the global perspective of the green transition and the complexity of the green transition in this country. The role of the global south in this kind of transition is, I think, an important part, especially if we want to talk about just transition. But the problem is also related to the fact that this transition relies more on an infrastructural process that is concentrated in the hand of a few players that belongs to the infrastructures, of course. And this infrastructure is not a public one, is a private one. It's not oriented to universalistic aims, but is oriented to extractivism strategy. And the importance of digital infrastructure is also political. Think about it, for example, the debate about the case Huawei versus Google during the Trump administration, or the recent CHIPS Act during the Biden administration, the so-called chip war between China and United States to avoiding the technological decoupling of China in the semiconductor industry, and the issue, of course, of Taiwan is strongly related to that. And in fact, some scholars talk about these problems of like a sort of, using the term of weaponized interdependence, and point out the problematic issue at the global level in terms of international relation and stability. In a certain sense, the problem, the cruciality of the digital infrastructures realize a new form of Cold War between China and United States. And this is another aspect that we have to take into account when we talk about the social impact of the transition. These two graphs instead is a study about a German foundation that compare the readiness of a specific European area for green and digital transition, and the possibility of get opportunity and good effects of the digital transition. The greener the green area are the most ready and the most potential area for green and digital transition, while the red area are the lower ready and with less potential. If you look at this graph, not only you could easily check the almost overlapping of the two, so who are in a certain sense demonstrating how the two transitions are strongly related to each other, but also could have an easy evidence of the how the transition could endanger and enlarging the existing territorial imbalances in Europe. For example, if we look, for example, the Italian case, we have a historical problem of territorial dualism between the north and the south of Italy. And looking at this graph, you can see how both the transition doesn't represent in terms of potentiality a possibility of reducing the gap, but maybe an occasion to enlarging or reinforcing the gap. But also think to the case of France, where the problem is that innovation is strongly concentrated in specific urban poles that desertify the rest of the economy. This is another important issue that we have to take into account, the relationship between specific big urban poles that concentrate the capability of producing eco-innovative solutions that are playing a leading role in the system and the rest of the country. So making even more extreme the dualism we have between central areas and inner areas. Looking at these frictional aspects of the combinatorial nature of transition is something that we have to take into account when we have to shape our policies in every level of governance we want to take into consideration. Also because regulation is sometimes hacked by technology. Technology, in a certain sense, operates as a form of hacking of regulatory system. In different sensitive area of our social coexistence, the area of work, the area of market competition, the fiscal aspect, the problem of welfare, and even the problem of privacy. And respect to this approach, regulation have different difficulties to cope with the quick change of the transition and the acceleration of the transition, and continue to adopt a extremely silos approach in the regulative aspects of this transition, separating the digital from the issue of the digital, but the issue of sustainability, and don't generating an innovative approach, a combinatorial approach between the two transitions. Let's take a look to an important aspect in the final part of my presentation about the intersection between this green and digital transformation and the labor market. In this graph, you can easily check that, of course, when we talk about the new green economy, it's an important part of economic transition that is pushing employment. Respect to the general economy, environmental economy is particularly vital and dynamic in development, especially in developed countries. But this dynamicity is somehow quite evident in the reframing of jobs, traditional jobs, new jobs that are related to this transformation. Many of them are also related to the use of digital technology, but not only. But what is very important, that is not only problematic, only not in terms of the possess of technical skills, but many of these jobs are strongly related to the more humanistic body of knowledge that play an important role in these kind of labor market areas. For example, take a look especially to the last part of this slide on the right side, the green arts and minds, an important part of new jobs generated by the transition work on the cultural level and are very important for transition. To work in that area that I mentioned before about user acceptance, citizen acceptance and legitimation of the transition. And in fact, for example, citizen engagement specialists, mediators in the transition, new mediators, professional mediators in the transition will become important players in professional players that emerge as new professions in the digital and green transition. This is another interesting data, for example, that came from LinkedIn Green Skill report that show how different sectors are shifting more rapidly towards the green economy, and show the sectors that are more invested by the request of green skills and green professional. The three main areas are energy production, mobility and transportation, and of course finance. What is interesting in the LinkedIn Global Report is an evident problem of job mismatch, because we have an increase, of course, of green talent, of workforce that says that have skills that are suitable for the green transition, but the demand, the number of job posting that ask for this kind of skills is almost double respect to the growth of the availability of skills in the green economy. So there is the risk of a job mismatch, and in this area, of course, there is opportunity for rethinking welfare system as an important part of policy to, especially active labor market policies, to reframe skills in order to avoid this sort of job mismatch between demand and supply. This is I don't know how much interesting for some of the audience. This is a specific focus, of course, on Italy, and it's evident that this is the percentage of manufacturing industry that are investing both in digital tech and green tech, and of course these more than half of these is destined to combine the two types of technology, demonstrating how the two transitions are coming even more together in recent years. But what is important that specifically for Italy, I'm sorry, it's an Italian report, so the slide is not translated in English, but I translate for you the content. The company that have invested more in green tech technology have increased also their revenues, increased their employment, and they increased their export. But this possibility clashed with the problem again of job mismatch, because the 40% of this company declare not to find suitable people for the jobs they need, especially for green positions, so-called green positions. Looking at the impact in the last slide, I want to talk about what social research said about the relations between transition and green jobs, and green and digital jobs. I divide the conclusion of social research about that in two main issues: the emergence of new profession and new welfare related to this transition, and the part about the contentious nature of transition, also from the professional point of view. Specifically related to this second issue, environmental labor studies is an emerging field of research that put in evidence the importance of trade unions and social movement in shaping the transition and the quality of transition in industrial society. Also, for example, recently in the rider movement start to emerge not only the asking for more rights for riders, but also putting in questions the sustainability of the platform economy in general. And the new movement linked for example, to the rider movement included some reflection and some claim for regulators to pay attention about how platform economy is not sustainable, even from the environmental point of view. The second aspect, the second interesting aspect in social research is the intertwining between social movement and transition and labor. The main example in this field are more agri-food networks. Maybe you already talked about with the Professoressa Francesca Forno. There are niche of innovator in agri-food sectors that they are based on forms of social innovative practice. They are transformed in innovative cooperative that try to combine digitalization, innovation, and sustainability. For example, alternative food network like solidarity purchasing groups, for example. These are an example where the main transformation in the transition, in the new profession of new professional areas in the transition emerge by social movement, by an increasing number of experience of activism that put in discussion the economic system, or put in discussion the model of economy we have, and try to experiment different form of governance, different form of supply chain. Of course, another interesting field is also the strong coercive isomorphism towards sustainability that oblige somehow industries, especially small and medium enterprises or small farmers, to the adoption of tech and green solution, sometimes destroying entire field of social practices and cultural knowledge embedded in the territory, that is more linked to tradition, maybe not innovative, but extremely efficient in terms of protecting natural resources. But this type of cultural heritage is somehow put in jeopardy by the strong isomorphism towards sustainability and the adoption of green tech in some key sectors. In food, for example, this is this interesting study of Marco Alberio about fishermen in Ontario that put in evidence the risk of that. The last aspect I want to underline is on the more positive side, is the emergence of new professions and new forms of professionalism in the double green transition. These new forms of professionalism are linked, first of all, to the co-productive role of consumers. Many new jobs are related to this strongly involvement of consumers in the supply chain, and recognizing somehow the hidden work of consumers in their somehow in a productive role in the system. The main case on this side is the role of citizen consumers in the energetic community. In energetic communities, there is no clear distinction between users and producers, for example, experience of energy community show the interplay between consumption and production, and now from consumption emerge forms of new professionalism. The other aspect is the transition management. In the transition need to be accompanied by specific professional figures that have the role of translators of the transition in the territory, and they play an important role of mediation between transition, the technology available, and the community, and the mediation between the technological dimension and the local environment become an important area of emerging professionalism in the labor market. And of course, we have different examples of that, for example, in renewable energy sector. For example, the study of Minervini and Scotti about the wind energetic sectors, where the establishment of wind energy production sites is strongly related to an important process of mediation with the municipality, with farmers, with citizens, and in this field, mediators operate as a sort of boundary spanners, people in between the two different dimensions, the technological dimension and the social consensus dimension. The other aspect, somehow underestimated by social research, but in my opinion, think to be more stressed, is the importance of welfare, active labor market policies to accompany the transition. I think that in this field of research, we don't have enough research and body of knowledge to accompany the double transition. And in a certain sense, this is despite there are some scholars that start to talk about sustainable welfare and the importance to accompany welfare, to combine welfare policies and sustainable policies for sustainability, there is not a specific focus on active labor market policies that in this sense play an important role in order to reframe for example, some jobs. Think about, for example, to the phenomenon of neo-rurals or neo-crafts that are invested by digitalization and have also an important effect in terms of sustainable economy, and are not taken enough into account in active labor market policies in European countries. I think I finished my time, but of course, it depends on question. I can show some other example of research about that, and if you want, we can deepen some aspect you are more interested in, have some clarification, or you want to do some comments or other stuff like that. I'm totally available. I'm totally yours for this time. So please, I'm quite anxious to have your feedback about what we are talking today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Davide. This is a really great lecture. We agreed before we start the lecture that the audience can ask. I have some question, but I couldn't ask simply because it's very interesting. Thank you very much. So maybe I leave the floor first for our colleagues here to ask questions for Davide. You just can unmute yourself, and then you can just ask your question, or you can put your question on the chat and I can read it if you like. Okay, if not, maybe I can go ahead. I would like to highlight one of your slides when you start to present this LinkedIn result. And you said that one of the points that highlighted in this survey or in this report, the job mismatch. So do you think you are academic and you are working in academic field? Why there is mismatch here? Because as you presented here, there is a sort of a lot of opportunity, future opportunity. And of course, your presentation is good because you present the two sides of coins. You know the good side of the twinning and the bad side of the twinning. But when you are speaking with anyone, always they spot the good side. They didn't spot the right side or the bad side, but you present both of them. So if we start to look at the good side, that twinning is important and we need to do such a twinning in order to move more sustainable for our society. Why from your point of view that universities didn't go further in order to scale up the students to fill this mismatch gap?
Thank you for the question, Tamer. Is a very challenging question.
Yes, I
of
know.
course. I think that there is a problem of sometimes of in university system, especially in some part of Europe, and this explains, for example, the different potential areas for eco-innovation, for example, more concentrated in the northern part of Europe, where they interlink, for example, between university and companies, tech companies, or big players, for example, in the energy production or other stuff like that, generate a positive contamination that produce human capital more capable to be suitable for transition, for the double transition. And at the same time, there are university systems, they are less linked to the other helix. For example, mainly for example, the Mediterranean or the eastern part of Europe, as I showed you before, that have a university system more closed to this dialogue, more capable to intersect the potentiality for producing human capital suitable for the transition. and this is a partial response to your concern about the role of university. For example, in our side, for example, if I make the example of Italy, the pandemic was quite strategic in this sense. Before the pandemic, Italian academia doesn't talk so much about the interlink between the digital and the environmental sustainability. The pandemic was the first time we experiment forms, for example, of e-learning, use of platform for teaching and stuff like that. And for the first time, the academia needs this great shock to put in questions if its model of teaching is innovative enough or is capable enough to intersect this kind of innovation, to catch this kind of innovation. Before the pandemic, we don't have argumentation, reflection. And for this reason, we were not so equipped during the pandemic to face the pandemic through digital device and commit different mistakes in coping with the pandemic through digital tools without any serious reflection about the use of this tool and the social consequence of using this tool. We were unprepared to transition, despite we work in the frontier of innovation, because academic research work in the frontier of innovation, because work in the so-called basic research that is the first step of any possible innovative process. But at the same time, we don't have enough capability, we don't develop a corpus of reflection capable to cope with the pandemic challenge. PNRR, the Reprise and Resilience Action Plans produced after the pandemic represent a policy stress to do so, because after the pandemic we start to imagine the new degree courses for green transition. We start to make PhD oriented to digitalization and greening. We don't have something like that before the pandemic. Despite the importance of sustainability and digital transformation emerged from a long time, but university was quite absent in participating into this kind of stuff, quite lethargic.
You need a shock in order to take action.
Yeah. And for this reason, I say again, pandemic represent the external shock. External shock that was particularly relevant, especially for Mediterranean country or Eastern European country, respect, for example, to the tech innovative leaders that stay elsewhere. Because we, for example, in terms, for example, of Information Act, use of open data, citizen engagement to forms of open government, Nordic country have this kind of debate more years before countries like Italy or Spain.
But maybe I can reflect here, even if northern country has this debate, again, it's the same situation. So all the universities here in Norway, for example, it was passive until the shock come with COVID. So it's the same situation, more or less. Yeah.
Yes, because the pandemic stress the necessity. People think, in my opinion, people in different countries doesn't imagine, of course, a phenomenon like the pandemic, and imagine to have more time to imagine the transition, because transition, I repeat it, is a long-term strategy of transformative change. Despite the acceleration of recent years, is a very gradual approach. It's not really a revolutionary approach to transformative change. This is the point. And talking about transition is a problem of timing, of course. This is, I think, another important political issue that we have taken into consideration. I think that Mirko raised his hand.
Yes, there is a question here. Yeah, please.
Yes, just a short question about the quintuple helix. Your opinion, Davide, what is the role of AI, and in particular, where the AI can interact with the other helix?
Okay. I think that respect to the role of AI in this in the idea of eco-innovative system, new eco-innovative national system is somehow overestimated. But this is a personal opinion, but shared with the different scholars that work on this side. We have this idea of performativity of artificial intelligence as a way to overcome limits, human limits in our capability of take decision and process information. But what we saw when we talk about artificial intelligence is the idea of that was typical also in the 70s or after or it was present also in the Second World War scientific groups, the idea of forecasting. Artificial intelligence is seen as a tool for forecasting, for imagine the future. Not imagine, to know the future. This is the bad idea about artificial intelligence. And this idea of performative technology that is capable to forecast and make provision of our futures, like imagine that there is only one future possible, and doesn't consider the interactive dimension in the construction of futures and dynamic dimension in the construction of futures, is of course a narrative about artificial intelligence, the role of artificial intelligence in the eco-innovative system that we have to somehow put in question. In my opinion, we have to talk about multiple futures, and for me, the importance is not if we have the capability of calculating or provisioning, having provisioning elements for the future, for imagining what the future could be, but is the problem of the fourth helix, how people participate in the construction of futures every day. That is a human side more than artificial intelligence. I think that is not, despite what the creators of artificial intelligence said about a human-centric artificial intelligence, of the idea of an artificial intelligence shaped for people, we are far away from that. We have more in the idea of artificial intelligence as a sort of Leviathan, as a sort of power to know the futures before it happens. But it's something that the history demonstrates that doesn't work. And in a certain, there is an important book that talks about the algorithmics of God. I use these terms with the idea of the algorithmics to substitute our trust in algorithms like they were gods. But this is something metaphysical in algorithms, despite their they are based on scientific knowledge. And I think that what is underestimated always when we talk artificial intelligence is the human side behind artificial intelligence and the role of people and citizens to participating in shaping the possible multiple future that we have. And in a certain sense, is the only way to include artificial intelligence in eco-innovative process is empowering the fourth helix, that is the social side of the eco-innovative system.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Actually, Marco, I completely agree with Davide here about the role of AI. I completely agree with you. So you can see most of the people say, oh, AI will solve everything, but not really. Not really, yes. I have one question. I don't know if any of our colleagues here would like to ask, but I have one question. You presented during all the lecture like the positive and the negative side. And yesterday I read an article that published last week or 10 days ago about that we already passed 6 of our planetary boundary. So we are sort of in emergence case. And I think most of our colleagues here who are watching this video or this guest lecture, they start to feel it during the summer, like this heat wave and the floods and so on. Do you think we have, or you believe in the negative first? So my first question is, do you personally believe in the negative side or the positive side of this twinning?
Of this twinning?
Yes.
We're convinced on the I think that there is not a problem if there's more negative or positive, but is the importance how to drive towards the positive side.
Yes.
The problem in the narrative and in the political frame of the twin transition is what, of course, eco-socialists say really the true, the technocratic trust in the technological and technocratic trust in of the transition as a sort of automatic positive output that relies on the application and the implementation of policies. Actors plays an important role in that. It could shape the form of the transition. Technology and policy are not neutral, and shape of policy and shape of tech can determine different effects. So my role in this sense, I repeat what I told you before answering to Mirko. The fourth helix, the civil society helix, is the most important helix in the transition.
Yes.
And we have to and for this reason, I insist when we talk about the problem of mediation and as a new area of professionalism in the twin transitions, means this, that we need professionals that are capable to engage people and helping them to collaborate for a better transition. This is what the just transition also concept claim in the principle of left no one behind, restoring the collaborative process at every level of governance, at the local level, at the national level, at the international level, is something quite crucial to shape transition towards the best part of it. Of course, there is quite complex and need, for example, what we are talking at the beginning of this meeting, the need, for example, transdisciplinarity, more interdisciplinarity, more transdisciplinarity program of research. We don't have a body of knowledge enough equipped to cope with this complexity. I quote in my speech this idea of challenge-oriented innovative ecosystem. This means that we have to elaborate a different approach also in production of research capable to cope with the complexity of the twin transition. As I said before, in regulation nowadays, we found an approach that continues the silos approach, separating the transition, not looking at the interplay. This is an important limit. Also in our programs, for example, PNRR invest in new PhD that all are towards founded for project oriented to sustainability, or are funded for digital, like they are two different aspects. Instead, they're two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
This kind of separation is a very not effective approach in policy making. This is why we need to talk more of this transition in combination, and in the positive and negative sides, how they interplay of positive and negative are so important in the transition.
Yes. Actually, if you allow me to steal few words from you, actually, you just framed out the core of our project, Inspiring the Mind, where this lecture is part of it. Because we completely believe that we can't achieve sustainable development. We can't go to be more circular economy or zero net without the people.
Yeah.
So this is why we try to make such lecture, try to bring expert person like you to increase the knowledge, to discuss, to explore different opportunity. I am sure maybe half of the people who are here was believing that, you know, digital can do everything. But after this lecture, we need to sit and look again. Maybe it's not, digital is not the hero that fix everything, but we are the hero. We are the people who control everything. We can, as you said, the policymaker and the society itself can frame how we can go outside from this catastrophic situation that we are hitting. Yes.
Yeah, just to quote also a project that I part of it that is called ReCity, Resilience for Smart Cities. In this project, we are try to work to specific climate change emergency, like for example, flooding, heating, and stuff like that. And we work side by side with technological providers, technical academic research, people that work in the sensors development and other stuff like that. But at the same time, we work on people on territory to shape and design this type of tech.
Co-create things.
In creating a technology that is where people play an important role. So now in research, there is a new sensitiveness about that you can generate new technology without taking into consideration people that have to apply that, or also in a circular closed loop economic system. So people play an important role because they are actors that interfere and interact with with tech. Think about the actor network theory of John Law, the contribution of Callon, of Latour, about the importance of the human interaction in technology is an important part of tech too. Could be separated by technology in itself. Technology is not only a tool, but is a result of the interaction between the tech device and people. And now in research, we try to do so, for example, in this project, or in the other project I mentioned, biotraces, we try to adopt action research methodology to engage community to found innovative practices to cope with specific emergency in the biodiversity related to the biodiversity issue. Because we need to fund, of course, this type of approach in the construction of technology, innovative process, are very resource consuming, not only monetary resource, but also in terms of human energy, human time, and because maybe additionally laboratory of research and development are more effective in terms of speed of development of technology, but we have to change the paradigm in technological production, and this we are trying to do in this project.
I think today it was a lecture. We planned it to be 1 hour, but now it's 1 hour and a half. This is because, you know,
sorry,
it's really,
sorry,
no,
it's my fault.
No, it's, I told you, you know, when it's very interesting lecture, it can be lost for something like this. And this is why it's lost for something like this. So I don't know, maybe if any one of our colleagues here online would like to ask the last question, or. Okay, if not, I would like to thank you very much for this very interesting talk, and please allow me to like send you an email, because really I would like to sit with you maybe next week or week after just to discuss more.
Okay.
And I would like to thank very much our colleagues from Solco for this organization, and wish all of our colleagues here a nice weekend, and see you 28 or 29, I don't know, remember exactly, Davide, for
29
of this month, with another interesting lecture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Anytime any of the present want to contact me by email, I'm totally available to your question, comments, and confrontation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.